Welcome to the Digital Agency Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Englander. Today on the show, I'm very excited to welcome Josh Ledgard, who is the founder of Kickoff Labs. According to his official bio, they bring a powerful tool for businesses focused on audience growth. With experience ranging from big tech to social media companies, he developed Kickoff Labs along with his co-founder to simplify the process of generating word-of-mouth referrals, launching a new product, and running giveaways designed to promote one's business. Outside of work, he enjoys playing recreational baseball and spending time with family. Josh, really excited to have you on the show.
Happy to be here, Dan. Thank you.
Before we threw on the recorder, we were talking about the idea of referral marketing, be it B2B or B2C, based on certain things. Not to preempt your response too much, but I think that, and others have also observed this recently, that we're in sort of like a trust recession, it seems like. Deals take longer to close. There's more options, there's more distractions. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like a trust recession describes the dynamic that you're seeing with like your customers, or if not, how would you describe kind of what's going on right now?
Yeah, so I think that's a good way to put it potentially is there's a lot less kind of free-flowing money, probably due to interest rates in the market going around. So companies are looking at their marketing budgets are always the first to kind of get slashed. And so companies are looking at their marketing budget and saying, with a skeptical eye, saying like, what's really bringing results, what's not bringing results? If we're going to spend more money on something, what are we going to spend more money on? And then they're doing a lot more due diligence on those efforts than they potentially were before.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And to take a step back, can you talk a little bit about the product and how you guys are setting up, referral generated campaigns and so on?
Yeah. So Kickoff Labs as a product was built from the ground up to kind of be a referral system. So I know there's probably a question going on about the founding of Kickoff Labs, but it does go back to the root, which was when my co-founder and I decided to launch a company. We had a whole bunch of ideas and we were like, which idea is valid? And we wrote out business plans and from half a page to 5 to 10 page plans. And it just strikes you that, when you start going down that route, you're making up numbers and you're like, 1% of this $1 billion market is a ton of money. And you're like, we could get that. And it's just, the only thing that, when it boiled down to it and, 11 years ago when we started the business was, were we able to capture someone's attention? And were we able to capture it in a way that excited them enough that they also wanted to tell a friend, right? We didn't want to pre-sell anything. We didn't want to take money before we had a product to actually sell people, but we wanted to see, could we measure if somebody shared the product or the idea because they thought it was a good enough idea worth sharing? And then that was a measurement of, you could compare ideas against each other that way. Were you able to market an idea to the point where somebody was willing to share it? And of course, that became idea number 6 that we had, because we were engineers. We're like, let's just build a product that made tracking that really easy. So we built our own little MVP to track it for the other products. And that became idea number 6. And we started marketing that along with the other product ideas we were working on. And it kind of took off faster than some of the other. We were actually for about 2 years building 2 separate products. And this one started to take off more and we kind of followed the customers and the money.
Yeah, that makes sense. And with that in mind, how has the process changed of getting people to share stuff with their friends? If you're looking at the beginning of the company now.
So I think the technologies, because it's been a long time, the technologies and how people share and discuss things online has changed and shifted, but the psychology behind it really hasn't. Because deep down, marketing and psychology, the concepts of marketing that boil down to how people think about things. As a species, we don't really evolve that quickly, right? The basic concepts of, people wanting to showcase things they find interesting, people wanting to show I was first and I found this, and it kind of makes you look cool to say hey, look at this thing that I found. Or, hey, I'm being bribed to share this, not in such a callous way, but hey, if you sign up for this, you get $10 off. I get, something in return as well. So are you doing some sort of bribe in exchange for it? Does the product make somebody feel like they'll be more successful? All of those things really haven't changed. But do people share on TikTok versus Twitter versus Facebook versus Threads? Sure, the underlying mechanisms for people to share have changed a lot in the last 11 years. But the psychology behind word of mouth referrals and people telling, if you have a good experience at a business, are you willing to tell somebody else about that experience, really hasn't shifted. But the tools to measure it and to track it have gotten better over time. That's, what we bring to this as well.
Yeah, and to dig into that a little bit, because I know you guys are working with a number of agencies, can you talk a little bit about how most agencies are typically handling referral programs like this and kind of how you guys are involved in that?
Yeah, so there's several different ways that agencies are using it. So we have some agencies that specialize in helping their customers and their clients set up new product launches and specifically crowdfunding campaigns. So Kickstarter and crowdfunding a business has become really huge in the last 11 years. So that's one of the shifts probably that we didn't see when we started the business. It wasn't one of our core customers, but now it's a big part of our customer set is people looking to fundraise. As a precursor to fundraising, you have to have an audience. How do you build an audience? One of the ways to do it is through word of mouth referrals. And so we have a lot of agencies helping customers as part of their package for building out a Kickstarter campaign or an Indiegogo campaign to say, hey, step one, we need to get 50,000 email addresses. So how do we get 50,000 email addresses? Run a word of mouth promotion where, if you bring on 3 friends, you get an extra discount at the launch, you get access to the early bird specials. And so they really run it as a precursor to the Kickstarter campaign. So if you think about the benefits you get on a Kickstarter campaign being like an early bird special or, a free copy of the product or an add-on that might be exclusive to a few people, they're setting up a campaign with Kickoff Labs that lets people earn early notification about those things, or then all the way up to potentially even like a free version of the product themselves before the launch. And they view that as a marketing expense that they're doing to help capture, the first 50,000 email addresses. The other side of it is agencies that run for e-commerce brands. And so if you do lead generation for e-commerce brands, and that's one of your specialties on a Shopify store, one of the important things, we sell people and the agency are selling people is this concept of engagement over time. So not just sending out an email, once a week, once a month to your audience saying like, hey, we're having a Memorial Day sale. Here's 20% off. Cause like every brand sends like, it's 30% off Memorial Day. But thinking about how do you keep people entertained and engaged? Because it's not just a fight for through discounts, but it's also a fight for people's attention and mind share. And so can you create, a fun giveaway or a fun promotion where if like they share this online, they get extra chances to win potentially like an exclusive color or exclusive, version of the product. And we see that people who run those campaigns, maybe once a quarter have a much more engaged mailing list so that when they do then send out the promotion, it gets a lot more eyeballs because people are like, oh, like I remember having fun with that competition, or like, we've had people literally do like jelly bean guessing games, the picture of this jelly bean, like online, enter your guess and like who gets the closest. And, these small things seem very gimmicky, but in the end, it nets to an increase in engagement with the customers on your brand, right? And then final set of our customers are running kind of evergreen referral programs. So that would be the classic, like, the Tesla, the Dropbox, you refer a friend who signs up and pays something and they get $100 off and you get $100, to your account, the altruistic referral saying, give one, get one for a friend. And that's just like more the pure bribery for existing customers, kind of making it easy for them to share. You make it easy for them to share, you give them incentive for them to share, and they like your product well enough to share. And if you have those 3 things together, it's not that expensive to run a really successful referral program these days with the technologies that are available.
Yeah, that's cool. There's so many jumping off points there. I think just real quick, I'd love to do kind of like a little sidebar on crowdfunding because I feel like it was one of these things that was front and center of my attention a few years ago, and then it kind of just drifted off. And I don't know if I'm alone or if it's the nature of the space, but I remember like equity crowdfunding had a big moment. Where are we with crowdfunding now? Like, are you bullish or bearish on it? Do you feel like it's sort of a mature market, or do you just still think there's a lot more room for it to grow? Or what are your thoughts on crowdfunding writ large?
I think we're still seeing innovation in the space. I mean, even as much as like digital startups and, going like we're still seeing a lot of like indie game developers crowdfunding their indie game launch. We're still seeing like SaaS companies, crowdfunding an early launch to get excitement. And we're even down to like physical stores, like crowdfunding their opening. I think it's a technology that doesn't seem as exciting anymore, but the rules are constantly still bending in people's favor to make it more equitable for people to have access to that kind of funding and also easier for people to invest. Those rules have gotten easier over the last few years in terms of the regulations and rules about getting people to invest. And I think that that's leading to, it's still a growing market overall.
Yeah, makes sense. Kind of thinking about First, growing lists, that sort of thing. I know that you guys have a number of case studies about doubling lists or taking people from
Mhm.
25 to 50K subscribers in a short amount of time. What went into those campaigns? Like, when do you know that you kind of have lightning in the bottle with a referral program?
Yeah, so I think it's a few things. So I tell people like first is the fundamentals, right? Like if you don't have a good conversion rate on an initial landing page where you're capturing leads, it really doesn't matter how good your referral program is or what you're bribing them or what the offer is for the referral program. Like you have a leaky funnel from the start, right? So I tell people first think about the fundamentals. Like, do you have traffic coming to the site? Is it the right traffic? Is that traffic converting at what you think is a good clip for your industry? So for some more expensive products, it maybe it's like 10%. For like a more consumery product, that should be closer to like 25 to 35% like conversion rate of people that you bring to a landing page that should convert on that page to just giving you the email address, not necessarily purchasing at that point, but just giving you an email address. But if you see numbers like, oh, we convert at like 3%, initial coming to the page, or we convert at like 8%, I tell people like full stop. Let's not worry about the referral part of it. Let's figure out why you're not getting conversions first. Because there's something else wrong with your funnel. And I don't want to have you generate 100 referrals that show up to the page and then say hey, like I'm just not interested. Because you brought the wrong people and they're referring people just because you bribed them potentially, right? And so the first sign is, do you have a decent initial conversion rate? The second sign that tools like ours track is, are you getting people to share in general? So what percentage of your customers are sharing? And it is really a long tail. I mean, you don't see, it's not every single customer brings, 1.2 other customers, right? It's more like you have a bunch of customers who maybe get like two or three people in, and then you have a couple customers that are maybe micro influencers you didn't even know who they were. But they've got a blog or a YouTube channel or something, and they get the referral link and they're able to make hay with your product and really promote it successfully. And we hear all the time from those companies, like early on, what they end up finding out is like, wow, like within the first week, I found this guy who referred, 25 people. And like, that's another sign that like, if you catch on like a micro influencer, that like, if there's one person like that out there who thinks your product is worth promoting, there's probably 100 others, right? If you're talking about like the smaller influencer space or the smaller influencer market for a product. And so we tell people like, you should really double down on like, look at this person's profile that like generated these leads for your campaign. What is it about them? Was like, where do they hang out online? And then can you double down on those sources and those locations to really amplify the effect of the referral tracking? And the most successful companies tend to like then put those people in like a VIP group. They find like 20 of those influencers in a campaign. They put them in a VIP group, whether it's a private Facebook group or a Slack group or a Discord channel. And they just kind of give them, early access, literally like marketing materials. Like, hey, we're doing this launch next week. And like, here's some materials and images and stuff that you can share exclusively with your audience, and like make it so that they've got good content for their audience and that they can use your links that you generated for them to move themselves up on a leaderboard. And sometimes they'll even just segment it off and have a separate private leaderboard for those people that's separate from the main competition. Because for those people, the motivation might not just be winning a thing of the product. It's, growing their own audience, and, just having a separate competition for them is more exciting for them, those people. And then the last thing is really just looking at that. Do you have healthy people coming from referrals? And like a healthy campaign with referrals, if you're just talking about like for the crowdfunding case, a healthy referral is like at least 50% of the leads coming from a referral of somebody else. If you're talking about a general referral campaign, looking at how your overall leads are coming from, like maybe you're just like to generate leads for business, maybe you're running ads, maybe it's just part of a strategy. Do you see it starting to become equivalent to the number of people you're bringing in through ads, right? So, or is it kind of one-to-one with people that you're like forcing to bring in? Because I tell people all the time, a referral program is not a solution to not bringing in leads. Like you don't go from like, oh, I set up a referral program, so that one lead's going to turn to two, the two is going to turn to four, and the four is going to turn to eight, and like so on and so on. Because people do sometimes have that fantasy about a referral program, but a referral program done well is really just an amplification of other good marketing that you're doing all around the referral program. And our software is a part of it, but that done well, it's thought about as an amplification. So, I tell my customers like, hey, if we do a good job, we're going to make it feel like the $2,000 you spent on marketing feels like you spent $3,000 on marketing, right?
Yep.
And that should be the goal that people have in mind with a good referral program, even one that, as you put it, like strikes lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's a good expectation to set of kind of like where it sits along everything else. I think with that in mind, my guess if there's like agencies managing, let's say campaigns for e-commerce brands or something like that, they're probably balancing referrals alongside like all the other actions they need customers to take, cross sells, upsells, whatever. How do you think about that? Like, what's the order of operations for putting in referrals into the flow alongside all that other stuff?
I think of referrals as this is a couple things. So, like for e-commerce, I think like cross sells and promotion happen like either before or at the point of purchase. And I think of referrals happening, the closest point to that be after the point of purchase. Like when you've grabbed somebody's attention and they've made a purchase and they've like completed the purchase, they've checked out, they've bought something, they're like super excited about this thing showing up at their door. Like, give them a chance to promote and say, like, hey, like, I've just got this thing coming to my, like, I'm excited to get it, right? Take advantage of that excitement and inject a referral system at that point for e-commerce. And we have a way to pop up the system like right then, like say, like, hey, like share that you're excited about getting this and you can get a discount on your next one or something, whatever they want to offer as a promotion. And then the second thing is kind of ongoing on the side. So thinking about like, do you do every 6 months or every 3 months, like a big giveaway for your brand to get people excited and keep the momentum going? So I think about those two programs a little bit separately. There's sort of the evergreen, catching people at their most excited points of using your product and taking advantage of that excitement. And then I think about the growing the audience in the raw email list way ahead of the point of sale, where you're just focused on capturing email addresses, right? And so there's kind of the capture email address goal, and there's the like get somebody to come in and actually make a purchase goal with the referral.
Yeah, that all makes sense. And I think one person we've had on the show is Roy Sutherland, if you know him from Ogilvy, and he's talked a lot about just surprising findings they've had from doing direct mail campaigns for clients, for example, where they put animals on one and it performs better, or the papers weighted more heavily and then the donations to a particular charity, the value of them goes up. Stuff that's like kind of surprising, at least at the moment. Is there anything like that that comes to mind? Is there anything that you guys have done or seen customers do that increased performance that might not have been as obvious before they did it?
I mean, there's a couple things. So I think one mistake people make is you assume that to capture a lot of email addresses, you have to give away something really amazing. And so some people make the mistake of like, oh, well, I don't have, I'm not going to give away a $5,000 this or like something multiple times the value of my product. And I think the simple thing is that if you have fans of your product, just giving away even just like really simple. We see a lot of merchants have success just running like a gift card campaign for your online store. And the gift card value doesn't have to be more than like $150, $250. Like it doesn't have to be a big spend to get people excited, as long as they feel like they have a chance to win and they have a chance to participate and take the follow-on actions that we also enable other than referrals. So we have ways where you can earn extra entries by like watching a video about the product, or earn extra entries in the campaign by like clicking and reading this product description or taking a small quiz, like all sorts of ways to like get people engaged. It doesn't have to cost a lot to get that incremental boost, and just think about like, I don't have to necessarily start out with, I'm going to double my email list. Just starting out with like, could I take my email list from 10,000 to 11,000 in a short amount of time, right? Could I go from 11,000 to 12,100? Like that incremental percentage growth, like is additive over time when you're collecting valid email addresses and capturing customer details. So I think that's the surprising thing. Number one is you don't have to give away a ton of things, but it has to feel fun. Kind of like you said, there's kind of that little bit of hidden feeling of like, is the card stock, really good? Is it? And it has to feel on brand. So, it just has to be like, instead of saying like the button shouldn't, little things like the button shouldn't say submit. It should say like, like I want to win the jeans, like, sign me up, whatever the brand is or whatever they're giving away. Just having it more personalized makes a difference. In terms of that's probably less surprising. In terms of like other surprising things, I would say it just doesn't take The other thing that people do, and I'm answering this again with like a mistake I see people make that they don't have to do, or effort they spend where they don't have to spend, is I see people spending a lot of time on really complex mechanisms. And they're
Mm.
like, I want a referral campaign, but I want someone to refer them from this stage of the process. And I want them to come to this landing page. And then I want them to like do these four things. And then I want them to do this. And then I also want them entered to win something as part of the referral campaign. And then I want, and like they take all these concepts they see across the internet and they create this amalgam campaign and say, I want this. And I think our support team all the time, they tell people like, let's take a step back, right? Let's think about like, what is the most simple thing? Because your customers can only hold one thing in their head if they're looking at it. If you're lucky enough to have their attention on a campaign, like make it really simple for them, right? And I see people all the time not making it simple, just overly complicating. Like, how do you earn this reward? And you're like, step one, you do this. Step two, you do this. It's like, no, it's just like they refer a friend, they can get a reward. Like make it really simple. Like, don't make it really hard to get.
Yeah, that all makes sense. And I think one area of this that you kind of touched on is email engagement, right? Because it's like, it's not just about sending them an email or growing the list from 25K to 50K. It's more about like getting them opening and making sure that you are going where you need to be
Mhm.
in the inbox, which has definitely gotten harder. We're approaching that from a B2B perspective where it's like really about, it's become more like SEO, frankly. It's like more about sending people a message that they want to get in order to get the message where it needs to be versus just in the
Mhm.
spam box or a tab or something like that. Can you talk about that a little bit? Out of your best customers that are like really nailing this, what are some of the things they're doing to get better email engagement? And even better if it's a non-emotional product, like something that somebody buys like once a year when they're dead tired at the end of the day, just because they have to.
Yeah, I think you kind of led the witness a little bit with the statement. Like
I do
I
that.
think I think the people who do it best are as doing as you say. Like I think the one thing, like one of the first things is creating that content worth reading, right? Or like content worth opening. And so is it something that's adding value to somebody's life or solving the problem in some other way where somebody might be like, oh, like I get free advice for this, or like I get something, something for nothing that has some value to me in my life that is solving a related problem. And so the people who do that really well tend to have better open rates. The other thing that people do, I think that has a really good impact is especially small companies really fail at this, which is they don't make it personal. Like they don't take advantage of the fact that they are a small company and using like a face and images and somebody's actual like email address. So like, we send out emails that come from like, it might not be my primary inbox, but it comes from like, Josh at Kickoff Labs. We never send even automated notifications on the product, never come from like no reply at. And I think so many people in small businesses and medium-sized businesses that want to act like a big business think that the way to do it is to set the return address to like info at, and like no, it should come from a person. The person should have a personality because you have a personality and you want your brand to have a personality, and it should feel more of a connection. Take advantage of your size while you have it. Because even looking at bigger brands that are successful, like larger brands are doing this by setting up their own like content. They've got their own podcast. They hire their own influencers, right? To make it feel more personal. But you have that advantage as maybe like a founder or like, the only marketer at a smaller company to take advantage of that and say, like, this is me. This is why I like the product. This is my personal journey to becoming a customer of this thing. And the more you can kind of be your own influencer there, the better the campaigns do in general, regardless of like the referrals and giveaways and stuff that you could also add on to the emails.
Yeah, I think that's a really good lesson, and you can actually apply it like in all aspects of the business, even like in operations. There's so many lessons to be gleaned from giant companies, but people often take the wrong ones. It seems like they
Yeah.
kind of try to make it too exact or something. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, and one of the biggest ones is like you can actually afford to change stuff way faster than they can and fix up mistakes that
Yeah.
a giant company can. So they've got to do a lot more research and involve a lot more people and take a lot longer to make decisions. So that's not necessarily the right lesson to take from them. I think that's really good. I think kind of getting towards the end of our time, Josh, I wanted to talk about how do you feel about what you're doing for your customers and then doing that for yourselves? Like, how are you sort of taking the stuff that works on the referral front and then bringing it into a B2B context, if that makes sense, if at all?
Yeah, so we have our own referral affiliate program, so we power it ourselves, obviously. So we do that, and we get a healthy amount of customers that come from those referrals and earn cash from like referring us customers. And so that's part of it. And then we do also run regular giveaways for our customers too. So we're also kind of running that playbook of like the evergreen referral campaign, and then as well as running regular giveaways for our customers out there. So like last Halloween, we ran like a candy giveaway. We ran like a Valentine's giveaway. Like we're just, similar to like, even though I think the other thing people make is you think about B2B completely differently than B2C. But the thing is, like, even more so now than 20 years ago, like B2B is B2C to the extent that like you have to get employees on board. You have to, and everybody who works there, even if they're the VP of marketing in a larger company, they're still a person. They still want to have fun. They still want to be engaged. They still want useful content that's useful to them. They don't want to feel shouted at, right? That you don't want to feel like you're just being pitched constantly for things, and you don't want to feel like you get like an impersonal message. It does actually kill me these days that like in the age of like AI that people still send like really non-personalized messages. Like we get pitches to Kickoff Labs all the time that still seem to have no idea what we do. But I know from testing AI, if you just went to OpenAI and said like, I'm going to reach out to Kickoff Labs, what's 3 things I should know before I contact them? It would generate you a much better email than most of the ones we get for a pitch perspective. And people should take advantage of that to personalize their emails.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and we get a lot of those too. So that all makes sense. Can you talk a little bit about like if there are agencies listening that want to build their own referral programs, like what should they have in mind? Because like we're all on these calls a lot where somebody's like, "Hey, we have a referral program. It's this amount or this percentage if you bring us somebody," and then there's polite niceties. Then everybody goes their separate ways, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
What's the, kind of in a B2B context? I know that it's very similar to B2C, but with that in mind, like how are the better organizations sort of thinking about structuring these programs?
Yeah, for like B2B, I think the thing is there's a couple things. Is one, again, treating it like individuals. So we don't reward the account. So we don't like we don't give credit to like the business account, be like, oh, your business brought us that. We reward the individual who brought us something. So if it's like an employee at the company who's using the software and they're like, oh, I want to refer a friend. So like they might refer a friend who runs a smaller business to us, right? And we're rewarding the individual that did the referral, not the business. So one way to think about is we could just give credit to the business account, but like what does the person who's an employee at a company care about the business saving $100, right? Like they care about them getting a PayPal for like $100, right? So that's one thing. The second thing is that we really focus on asking for the referral too. So as you said, like you have this meeting, you're like, oh, by the way, if you send us somebody else like this, and that's one. But just like making a sale, like there's that classic thing, like you have to have 7 engagements before somebody is like really well connected to the brand or like understands it. And so like, are there other points in your process where you could be asking for the referral, like on your website or on like in an email you send? Like, are there other points? You don't get what you don't ask for. It's just similar to like making a sale in general. Like if you've got somebody you've got a little bit of their attention, even when somebody emails support, I tell the team as part of our support script, if somebody writes back and says, oh, that was great support, like, thank you for helping me. My reply from the support team should be like, hey, don't tell us, like, here's the link to tell your friends and you get $100, right? Like, because you had a positive interaction. Here's how you can benefit from it. We appreciate the kudos, but the way you really give us kudos is by telling a friend.
Yeah.
Right. And sort of having those points of interaction built into the other parts of the process that you have to make it like where you're really investing in it. But I mean, what is that? It doesn't cost as much to have like the support team's going to reply to that person anyway, and say, oh, thanks. But you might as well say, oh, thanks. And by the way, here's a way to earn $100 and tell your friends about this interaction you had. Right.
Yeah. I think that's really cool. And I really like the idea of putting it on the individual more in a way that's ethical. If you're an agency running big accounts or something, there's a version of that you can do.
Yeah.
that could work really well. I think it's simple, but it's sort of something you don't see a lot. So that's really awesome. And Josh, with that in mind, where can people go to follow what you're up to and get in touch and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so obviously the product is at kickofflabs.com. You can follow me individually and you can follow the product anywhere like Twitter, Threads, Facebook, at Kickoff Labs. I am usually on Threads at Josh Ledgard. So you can just follow me there. And I'm sure like there's a place to put the links on the show for you guys. And I can send you the links afterwards. But yeah, that's how. And if people just want to send me an email, it's josh@kickofflabs.com.
Awesome. We'll get all that linked up. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.